Our theme this month is compassion, and my topic today is towards a more perfect union. Towards a more perfect union. That's a phrase that first got popular by Abraham Lincoln about a more perfect union. And some of the affirmations that we said earlier in the day are taken from Martin Luther King Jr. when he explained 50-something years ago that our technologies have made of the world a neighborhood, but we have lacked the will to make of it a brotherhood, is how he put it. Towards a more perfect union. That in terms of the way that I usually do the monthly themes, if you haven't caught on by now, that in the beginning of the month we usually talk about the spiritual quality, get an understanding of what it's about, and typically in the beginning of the month are looking at it more from a personal standpoint, more from a micro level, and as we progress towards the end of the month, we take it to a macro level. Now, you know me. In every sermon, I'm going to do a little bit of both. But in terms of how it progresses that way. And I think that it's really, 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 really important that we hold this balance. I find with so many spiritual traditions that we practice here in the United States is that they err on one side or the other. That they're either out there, charitable, doing all this like great, wonderful work out there in the world, but nobody's cleaning up their heart. There's not really a shift that's being made in a very fundamental level that creates any sustainability for all that good charitable work. There's just us feeling very blessed at our privileges, and we're going out to quote-unquote help people, but we're not doing the things that systemically, we're not doing anything to resolve the things that systemically cause the poverty, that create the need, And we're not looking at those things. Those of us who are busy doing all the inner work and the moment, sometimes that's all, they're not doing enough to assume responsibility for the collective consciousness. Okay, it's not just an individual consciousness, it's a collective consciousness. So the inner and the outer are the same. The micro and the macro are the same. There are not different laws for different things. I want you to really catch that. There are not different laws for different things. It's the same laws. It's just a matter of degree. It's just a matter of magnitude. There's not different gravity for a tennis ball than there is for a rocket ship. It's the same gravity. There's a certain way that systems work. I don't care whether it's the way that your inner cells are orbiting around or whether it's the solar system. There's a way in which things work, and they're going to work the same way. There's a way that love works. It's going to work the same way at an individual level as it's going to work on a collective level. It's going to be the same way. I was looking at something on Netflix the other night. It just caught my attention. It's an hour show, and I highly, highly recommend it. I'm only halfway through it now. It's called Mandela and His Music. Mandela and His Music. And it's this whole documentary, basically, not only on Mandela's life, but the role, and we know how important music is, but the role that music played, not just in South Africa, but the role that the music played around the world that the South Africans weren't even allowed to listen to, that was about their struggle and uniting the world like in their struggle. And it's so uplifting and it's so inspiring. And as the musicians are talking and explaining the things that were going on and talking about, Mandela and how he had that perfect moment, so to speak. He had that perfect moment to like squash the oppressor, so to speak, just to bring them down to their knees as they're letting him out to save the country from going up in flames. But he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it with this absolute graciousness. I want you to feel this absolute graciousness. He's working towards a more perfect union. In this absolute graciousness, he's saying, look, I don't like the fact that anybody is having all the power over everybody else. So you've had it over us. What good is it going to do us to have it over you? Because that's the problem. The problem here is the imbalance of power. Not who has the power, but the imbalance of the power. I want you to catch that. It wasn't like good guys, bad guys, but the systemic stuff, what are we going to do? And I feel like he did a model there, which is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. He's the one person who had the courage, yes, the audacity, to take what works at the most micro level and say, we're going to do this at the macro level. He says, no, we're not going to have revenge. We're going to have reconciliation. We're going to have reconciliation. We're going to take all this hurt, we're going to take all this pain, and we're going to put it out. And he started a whole truth and reconciliation process, which was a model for the world, just an extraordinary process where everybody comes together. And if you actually admit what you did, you got some immunity. That if you actually admitted it, and the whole forgiveness process, and everybody saying what it is that they had to say, and then he did the unthinkable. He did the unthinkable. He took the clerk, the very guy who was president over him when he was in prison, and made the clerk his vice president. And they won the Nobel Peace Prize together. That is compassion. Okay? This is how compassion works. And I don't care whether you're talking about global politics or whether you're talking about it in your own home, on your jobs. If you want a more perfect union, not transfer of balance of power. If you want a more perfect union, you're going to have to bring some compassion to the table. If you want a more perfect union, there has to be the willingness on your side to work with and team up with the very people that you have thought that you were against. Breathe. This is the way that it works. This is the way that it works. It always works this way. The people who are in the positions of power at some point in time are solicited and brought into the mix and wind up using that power towards whatever it is that's going to be the liberation. Women could not give women the right to vote because women weren't in Congress to do that. Men had to give women the right to vote. The slaves couldn't free themselves. Somebody else had to sign the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment to set that into motion to free the slaves. The people with disabilities couldn't have signed the American Disabilities Act because they weren't in Congress to sign the Disabilities Act. Okay? Towards a more perfect union. I'm on the board of directors of the Pachamama Alliance. And one of the most exciting things that's going on right now is our new corporate initiatives. So one of the most exciting things is this work that particularly Lynn Twist is doing with, I mean, like the top CEOs around the world, like these mega billionaires. And the amount of interest there is in the planet, the amount of interest there is in how do we do the right thing, how do we create more equitable societies. if we villainize anybody, we're going to miss it. Towards a more perfect union. If you want peace in your house, I guarantee you the only way you're going to get peace in your house is if you're willing to make peace with the folks that you're warring with. You can't have it both ways. You can't keep the war going and have the peace. It doesn't work that way. If you want health in your body, you're going to have to make peace in your body. It may seem like a strange thing to say, but we war against ourselves in our own bodies. The things that we think that are out of alignment, or the things that we're ashamed of, or the things that aren't working or whatever, we stand in judgment of them. We stand in condemnation of it. But there is no judgment in the world that has ever brought health. There is no condemnation of any part of your body or anything that is going on that has ever brought health. If you talk to anyone who's licked cancer, you talk to anyone who's overcome any kind of illness, and they will all say the same thing. I went to this profound place of love. I went to this profound place of compassion. Do I have any witnesses in the house? Yes. There is no other way. You look sad. This should be good news. This should be good news, because it means we have the power. That's the good news. We have the power. We don't have to stay stuck. Things don't have to stay out of alignment. We don't have to live in separation and war. We don't have to do that. We don't have to do it. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful? Towards a more perfect union. A union. We have been sold a bill of goods about this idea of just the rugged individual. It doesn't work that way. Nobody accomplishes anything on their own. You don't. That's not to say you don't play a part in it, but nobody accomplishes anything on their own. We are all in this thing together. We're all in it together. I'm getting the image again in that cartoon. I know I spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. In the Awakening Dreamer Symposiums of the Pachamama Alliance, there was this cartoon that they would use about this boat. It's just a basic kind of boat, like a rowboat kind of thing, and it's in the water. But the boat's tilted like this. There's a hole in one side, and it's sinking. So there's people on that side, and there's people here up on the top. So the people who are down at the side that's sinking are busy bailing water out and bailing water out. And the cartoon is the people on the top are saying, glad the hole's not on our side of the boat. But that's what we're doing in life. When we hear about things that are going on, well, glad that's on the other side of the world. Glad that's on my side of the boat. All that pollution, oh, glad it's over there. Guess what? There's one planet. Uno. And we all live on it. Werner Erhard, in that reading that we just said, when he said that what it's going to take for us to be this kind of thing, that this people that cares for everybody, He said it's going to take courage, audacity, and heart. And I've been pondering that. And it wasn't just till moments ago. In my heart, I've been asking myself the question, what's the difference between courage and audacity? Why was he being that distinct? It would take courage, audacity, and hope. What is that? And this epiphany that I got just a couple of minutes ago was one, most people doing acts of courage don't consider it to be courage. Courage is the name that it's given to it by other people after the fact. When you're in it, you're just doing what's before you to do. That's all. You're not trying to be courageous. A lot of times you feel like, I don't really even have that much choice. What are my options? And they don't look good. So courage, I realized, was just, what does that take for us to just face what's before us? And not be distracted by how difficult that it seems, or all the other facts of other options. That courage was just that ability to just stand up and face what is. The house is burning. Okay, I need to run in there and get my child. Just what is in this moment. Audacity, this is resonating inside. This is not Webster's. You know how I am with words. But audacity, to me, was a boldness, an intention, a deliberate, not just willingness to face what is, but to stretch the envelope, to stretch the boundaries, to go for it. It kind of like what Bobby Kennedy Jr. said, how some people see things as they are and ask why. Other people see things that have never been and ask why not. The audacity is that, why not? Why not? But the strength and the tenacity and the willingness to do both. Ooh, isn't that juicy? To deal with what is, but the audacity to go further. It reminds me of how Beckwith taught us, Michael Bernard Beckwith, when I was in practitioner training. And he said, you see people for all they can be, and you meet them where they are. Catch that. You see people for all they can be, and you meet them where they are. The balance. If you're only seeing people for all they can be, you're missing them. I'm sure everybody's had that experience. Where you see all this potential in somebody, and you're just in denial about where they are. You're the only one seeing that potential. You trying to push them and move them into places they don't even intend to go. I can tell by the laughter, I got a few witnesses in the house. And on the other hand, if you only see people for where they are, you miss it. Because we tend to make people what they do. We tend to just see people for whatever it is they have. And we miss it. I said it's the same thing on the most micro as it is on the most macro. If you're raising a child and you see the child for all they can be, oh, and you're busy making a college fund and all the rest of that, but they're 6. And they want you to play with them now. I'm not saying that you don't provide for their future, but sometimes we're so busy worrying about our kids' future, we're missing them today. And the opposite can be true. That I'm so busy, caught up in all your drama, here, I'm forgetting that you're more than this, that this too shall pass. And what am I doing to help you get on the other side of this? We do the same thing with each other at work, at home. We do the same thing with each other as nations. It's not any different. Do you feel that? It's not any different. So I don't care where you start. I don't care if you understand compassion at the most fundamental one-on-one relationship thing. That's fine. Just take what you know and apply it larger. So take what you know that works on one-on-one and dare to try it at your job. Dare to try it with the IRS. Dare to try it with the bill collector. Dare to try it someplace else. And likewise, if you understand it at the big level, apply it at the most fundamental level. I'm laughing now because I'm reminded of a rap song that I made years ago when I still lived in Los Angeles. And the opening line is, well, I love humanity. It's people I don't like. And we'll do that. Like, oh, yeah, we love humanity. But there'll be all this stuff and judgment about people and who they are and what they do. Oh, but we love humanity. Then if you love humanity that much, then can you love some humans? Can we do that? Can we do that? Towards a more perfect union. Try this in your spiritual communities, wherever it may be. This thing called compassion. Werner Erhard, in the reading, I loved it. He said, it's more radical than revolution. I'd never heard that phrase before. He said, it's more radical than revolution because it creates transformation. And transformation is more radical than revolution. It is. It's that kind of difference between courage and audacity, where the revolution is, there needs to be a shift, there needs to be an upheaval, and sometimes we're just so angry and frustrated, pain pushes until vision pulls it. We just want the upheaval. We just want something to change. But to set something else in place that's sustainable and that can go someplace, that's a transformation. We can do this. That's the thing. We can do this. All we lack is the will. I want you to catch what I'm saying. All we lack is the will. There is enough. There's enough. There is enough. There is enough food on the planet that nobody need be hungry. Breathe that in for a moment. There is enough. There is enough food on the planet that nobody need be hungry. What we lack is the will. So that's part of the reason why we have a provisions ministry here. The macro, the micro. We can't demand things happen at the macro level that we're not doing at the micro level. We can't talk about peace on earth if you don't have peace in your house. So we live in a food bank here, food belt here in Santa Cruz County. We're surrounded by farmland, right? And we're very, very fortunate that we get to have fresh fruits and vegetables at our disposal year-round. weather's beautiful here. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And what happens to all that food? And what happens to all that food? So part of what we do here is a redistribution. We're part of the Second Harvest Food Bank. And it's a wonderful thing. Anybody can come on Thursdays at noon, but it's not letting it go to waste. It's taking what we have and redistributing it. The elegant treasures that we do, it's some of that same thing. Like there's enough. You don't really need to go out and buy more stuff. We don't even really need to make more stuff. That there's enough stuff. And we just traded the stuff amongst us. Because there's enough. There's a flow. It's like there's a flow. There's something that's happening. And I invite you to be a part of the happening. To dare. To dare. This more perfect union starts with you. This more perfect union starts with you within your own life. Do you have compassion for yourself? Can you love yourself for everything that you've done and everything that you haven't done? Can we stop being in judgment of ourselves long enough to accept the bounty and the riches that God has for us? To let go of the stories of why we don't deserve because of what we haven't done or what something else hasn't happened. You know, Jesus is my main man. I say that all the time. And he never, ever, ever asked people those kinds of questions. He never asked people, well, what have you done? What was it about your consciousness that got you here? How long has this happened? The universe doesn't care. If you're lying on that hospital bed, the universe doesn't care. It doesn't care whether you tried to commit suicide, whether you were shot, whether you have a hereditary disease. It doesn't care. Your body is going to do what it can to heal. It's just going to do what it can to heal. The universe doesn't care about all those stories. Do you get me? The next generation comes up. The next generation doesn't have that story in their heads. We teach them that story. The little kids will just play with each other. They'll just play with each other. Can we just play with each other? Can we just play with each other? Can we just play with each other? I'll end with this visual because it was so yummy at the moment. We do a lot of prison outreach work. And I know I've told this story at least one other time. We do a lot, particularly with the Muslim American society. The Imam Michael Salam had been one of our prime sponsors in Pleasant Valley State Prison, and he's now at Avenal. And I remember being there with him at Avenal, and it was, I think, an interfaith meeting. And he was explaining to the men how this love, this compassion that happens. And he was saying that every child just wants to be loved. And that the child doesn't care. That the child doesn't care about the race of the person who's loving them or the gender of the person who's... They just want to be held. They just want to be loved. And that people can love across so many different kinds of boundaries. And he said, and every child is born with the same language. He says, every single child is born with the same language. He says, they all speak the same language. He says, and you stick around with the child and you begin to understand the different, this one's I'm hungry. This one's I'm wet. This one I'm a little sleepy. But He says they all have the same language. This, he says, we respond to those cries. And we kind of figure it out, so to speak. He says, we hear the cry and we know that the baby has a need. Baby can't talk. Baby can't explain it. But we can hear it. And then in this very poignant moment, he just looked at all of us and he said, when did we stop hearing each other's cries? When did we stop hearing each other's cries? Because underneath it all, we're all still speaking the same language. Underneath it all, it's still, I'm hungry. I don't need to be held. You know, underneath it all. And if we have the compassion, if we have the willingness, if we have the courage, the audacity, and this last thing that I'm talking about is the heart. Werner Erhard said, we need courage, audacity, and heart. This is the heart. This is that place of the oneness. This is that place of the love, the place of the interconnectedness. And I guarantee you, if you will bring courage, audacity, and heart with you everywhere, large or small. Just breathe that in for a second. Courage, audacity, and heart. Why don't you just say that with me 3 times? Courage, audacity, and heart. Courage, audacity, and heart. One more time. Courage, audacity, and heart. Like the way that feels inside? Yeah, let us pray.